Hello, everyone. There we go. Oh, hold that up to my thumb. Oh my God, this is crazy. Okay, so welcome everybody. I should go out and just do a walk and talk. The only thing if I do, I won't be able to go on Instagram or Instagram Live if I StreamYard and go for a walk. Anyways, I'm here. So let's talk about some energies and some craziness that's going on in the world. And had just the most bizarre dream last night. Just it was really crazy. Very sci-fi, very disturbing. Disturbing sci-fi kind of thing. So I was just like, no, I'm still trying to decipher it. You know, you get one of those dreams and you're just like, what does this mean? It was just, yeah, very, very bizarre. But good morning. So I got my notes here. A couple things that came to me, and I was thinking about it because I was talking to one of my girls, part of my soul girl family, yesterday, and I, after we talked, I thought because she's telling me all this the stuff that's going on in her life, and I was like, oh, okay, and just chatting, like I wasn't, you know, and of course my mind, I'm like, well, something is going on in her chart like, there's gotta be something going on in her chart because this is, like, really crazy shit. So I ended up, going into her chart and looking at her chart because I have it, and discovered that, holy shit, she's starting to enter Saturn return. And I'm just like, "Oh, oh." And what I love, I'm very somewhat observant with shit that goes on and watching people and watching the world around me. And what I've noticed more so in this last year, all of a sudden, there's so many courses on menopause. Like, oh my God, we're going through perimenopause. Oh my God, we're going through menopause. So all of a sudden, all of this information on menopause is coming up. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's good. It's good. It's good to have all this information. But I'm like, okay, why is all this stuff coming up? And I'm just like, oh shit. Yeah, not oh shit. Well, anyways, oh shit. Um, it's all these lovely Gen X's. Now, I'm kind of a Gen X, but I'm not a Gen X because I'm not a baby boomer because I was born in 63. And then where m- my Pluto lies, I'm kind of at the beginning of it, more so than others. So I'm in one of those weird in between type of generations kind of thing. And the Gen X is what I love because they're all like a lot of things I relate to, latchkey. I was never a latchkey kid. I always had a parent home or a grandmother home. I never came home without a parent being there. And that's I think that's just because I was raised by parents from the my dad was born in 1919. Most of the kids that I was raised with, my parents were the same age as their grandparents, you know. So I always found that interesting. But the flow of a generation that is growing, and right now, stats are coming out, and there is a stat that was put out by Newsweek, and I couldn't post it because I had to pay money to join their Newsweek. Anyways, was showing stats that, oh my God, birth rates are down. On average, Gen X's had 2 to 4 kids, right? And they had 2 to 4 kids, but their kids are not having children, which is interesting. And because of other scenarios that are going on, and that has to do with Pluto coming into Aquarius. But anyways, I digress. What I've noticed, especially with the Gen X, is all of these concerns are coming out, right? All of these things are coming out. They're perimenopause. Now, how I was trained as not as an astrologer, but as a herbalist, you're either in it or you're not. Either you're in menopause or you're not in menopause. It's like puberty. Either you're in puberty or you're not in puberty. The no, the girl's hormones are changing. She's in puberty. She may not have gotten her cycle yet. The moon has not hit, but her hormones are there. She's in puberty. She's in full-fledged boobs changing, hair growing in places, don't want hair to grow and all that kind of stuff. If you're in menopause, I know medically they want to say, oh, well, you got to have the pre and the post. Like, no, either you're in it or you're not. And you guys are all in it. You're in menopause. We're not going to try and sugarcoat this, but these are all the signs of being in pre-menopause, the hot flashes, the fogginess, blah, 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 and all this. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then I decided, well, let me look up where Saturn is. And of course, Saturn's in Pisces. So now we got a whole Gen X that are going through a Saturn return, a second one. And this second one is, what did I put down? From 1965 to about 1967. So these are the ones that are going through now. So these are the first Gen X's. The second Gen X's are going to be the ones that are 68 to 70. And then those ones are just entering into what we'll call the later Gen X's, right? The ones in the 70s and stuff. And those will be the Pluto or the Saturn in Aries generation. But the ones with the 65 to 67, you were born with a opposition to Uranus. So you're also coming into a Saturn-Uranus opposition, which is pretty crazy and gnarly if you think about it. Because a Saturn-Uranus, when you get Saturn and Uranus, it's the old versus the new. So here we come in with new, wanting to keep on to the old spiritual values because it's in Pisces. So the old ways, we used to do it this way. This is the way that we do it. Yet we have in an opposition. So opposite to Pisces is Sagittarius, and Uranus is there. So we have this opposition of, I want to bring in a new way of doing things, a new way of connecting. And here comes your Saturn return, which is getting you to really evaluate a lot of things in your life, more so than what you did when you were in your in your 20s, in your late 20s. Now, it usually starts around 56 years old, your Saturn return, and it goes to about 61, 62. I'm 60, so I'm still, my Saturn has passed, but there's cleanup to do. Clean up on aisle 5. Here I am. I'm cleaning up. It's a fucking lot of clean. The whole aisle just collapsed. So going through this is a huge spiritual change for many of the Gen X's that are going through this. And setting the tone, because this is a questioning, because you'll find a lot will go back to the old ways. Meaning, if they were raised in a certain religion or a certain way of belief system, they might want to go back to it in some format because it's comfortable. They know it. They're searching for something. Uranus in the opposition is wanting you to really discover a higher way of connecting with your God and connecting with oneself, and going into that higher learning and allowing for that higher learning to come forth in. So that could be a really huge power struggle. The other part too with Pisces, it has a lot to do with karma. It's the 12th house. So there's a lot to do with karma. There's a lot to do with secrets being divulged, secrets about self, secrets about discovering who you are. And it's also the house of hidden enemies as well. So things that, people may be popping up in your life that you don't need to be popping up in your life again and reappearing in your life in some way. So those types of things can be reappearing in your life. Now, it's not that this is unusual. It's just that we have a huge population that is going through it, which is something haven't had, I would say, in a very long time. Because, with the Gen X, you don't want to, I mean, you don't want to read Dewey Millennial takes on, the Saturn return or the Boomer Esquest aging tips. You're too, the Gen X is you're seasoned for manifest your desires. You're raised in a different format, right? Yet you're not generally able to relate to the vibe of Pluto and Leo, which is very much the generation that came out after World War II and the people born in that generation before. So the years, that second with the Saturn return aren't getting ready for a mellow retirement. So this isn't you know, where people start to think, "Oh my god, I gotta put you in a retirement home because you're turning 60." This is a generation too that wants to create something new, wants to create a different way of vibing. These are the ones, they listen to the Rolling Stones, you know, they listen to the Beatles, they listen, to Bread, to the Beach Boys, and many different, the music, of that time, right? And so this is where, it's an interesting vibe. This is where also with coming into your second Saturn return, you're facing death. You're facing the sort of what they call astrologically the last stages of your life, basically, because a lot of times people don't make it to their third Saturn return, which is in their 80s. So this is a time of really looking at, what do I, have I accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish? So this brings in a lot of craziness, right? With this. So we have also was Mars was in Virgo from November 6th, 64 to June 30th, 65, as Uranus and Pluto were in Virgo. Then these meant multiple Mars Pluto conjunctions over that nearly 8 months long. So there was a lot of things happening. So you can go back in history and look at the things that were happening in 64 and 65. We had, the so-called man on the moon. We had things to do with the Cuban crisis was rising up. We had racial wars going on at that time. So we had a lot of things like that going up and coming into our face, especially because, the Saturn wanting to keep on the old, Uranus the new, so the old. So when you look at things to do with race and people not wanting to do it that way. So you had people that were gathering together. You had Martin Luther King, you had Malcolm X, coming together, the Black Panthers, all of that, especially in the States. So you had this racial tension that was happening at that time. So very similar to what we're having now, a lot of racial tension that's happening at this time. And we have where we don't have the Saturn Uranus connection, the opposition, but we do have where we did go through the Saturn square Uranus, right? So that was a couple years ago, and that's when, with the thing that we just went through, giving you that, the elixir and things like that. The old way of doing, follow the science, follow what we say, to the new way. There's new ways of doing things, new way of exploration, and of creating new values. That's what, was going on there. Now we're having, especially with these Gen X's, are really looking into of their persona, their pattern, within their psyche. So this is where, let's call it, a rebellious tendency. Gen X people thought, the Matrix as a sci-fi documentary more than sci-fi. So this is where they're coming into the first insight to get across the 7-year cycle. Saturn doesn't simply hide out in between Saturn returns, Saturn squares, Saturn oppositions with your natal Saturn. So this is like the 7-year increment. So Saturn was last in Pisces from 1994 to 96. So we have that generation of young Gen X, not Gen X's, the next generation after the millennials coming in and going through their first Saturn return. So we got the first and the second Saturn return. And then we have from 2001 to 2003, 2008 to 2010, 2015 to 2017, phases where all super intensive Saturn development happened. So we go back and you start looking at, from 94 to 96, those years, 2001 to 3, 2008 to 10, 2015 to 2017 were definitely um, development years. And development years not only for the first, but also for the second Saturn returns as well. So this is, to think of this as a continuum, not some crazy, oh no, what again kind of fucking ambush. And while you're in this mode, remember to we got to take stock of your accomplishments, take stock of, as well as the defeats and the regrets, and simply just take time, analytical mode from a Saturnian perspective, which could be very difficult sometimes because Saturn's hard. Saturn is the learner, like he's the time lord. He's the god of karma, and he wants you to look at things, right? So second Saturn returns can also confirm the old Mark Twain axiom that history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. There are certain things, like right now we got Courtney Love and Keanu Reeves are both having their second Saturn return. Courtney Love is putting out her first album in over a decade. On the themes is what is it? Her emotions around tragic death of her husband, Kurt Cobain, who died in '94, and that was her first Saturn return, and same with his. And that's where Kurt passed in April of that year. So in the lead up to this first Saturn return, Keanu Reeves has a grieving River Phoenix and getting a crash course on Buddhism. So it's quite interesting how things change within our life, or things sort of have a kind of rhythm that is sort of similar but different than what had gone on before. So many of you going through your second Saturn return is really coming into a time of nostalgia, can congeal, take up valuable headspace, set your psyche in a mode that thinks the most integrating part of your life is done and dusted. And also a time when you accept that certain mysteries from your past cannot be solved as such, and that with some people. So there won't be a last word. So this is where the two stages also with the physicality. The first is when you read or hear about something unpleasant associated with age and Google, and you start to do, sort of the freak out. Um, Checkouts, they're apparently born around this time. You got, some of you might have gotten your first divorce. This is where, again, I just get a lot of realization about death coming in for many of them, of, oh my God, I really want to start putting more of a mark of what I want to do in my life. So everyone born in the 60s as Uranus and Pluto and Virgo, which will account for classic Gen X um, synonym. And this is where it's about just to keep on moving. It's a physical dimension, just move on through it. And but this keep on moving has a unique, brilliant moving meditation and exercise. We don't lose youth, and this is what and I wrote down, Twyla Tharps wrote, we don't lose youth. You don't your youth stays put, we move on. So you don't lose the youth, you just move on from the youth, right? And that's where, again, that's, every Saturn return transit involves a little bit of kettleballs, a little bit of understanding this is where my body is at times. And that's why you're finding a lot having to do with menopause and other issues that probably your parents didn't even really talk about, or their parents didn't talk about, are being presented even more right now because of the Gen X going through it, because they're not keeping quiet about all of their hormonal changes and things that are going on in their life at this time. Um, So this is where it's like also there was a I found a graphic novelist. Now, I'm not a huge reader, but I just discovered this because I go down a rabbit hole and I find shit. Her name was Jennifer Hayden, and she pulled off a fab Chiron return switch up that put her on the track of the epic second Saturn return and her secrets, and not going back to school or signing up for something self development ish, even when everyone saw was pushing it and doing it. Her advice her advice is you already know what you have, you already know what to do, so speed it up, don't slow down. And I loved that saying because a lot of times when you're going through the second Saturn return, you're thinking, "Oh, what did I miss? What didn't I get?" And oh, I need to really come into some kind of more development. And I feel this saying is such, rings true. You already know what you have, you already know what to do, so speed it up. Just do it. Just go for it. I mean, what the fuck do you have to lose, right? We have, if you don't know who Marianne Williamson, she's going through her second Saturn return realization as well. And she's the one who does a lot of, uh, ba- 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 ba. Oh my God. Anyways, laws of attraction or something like that. Um, and she wrote, "A younger man I know once said to me, 'I wish I could have known you when you were younger,' then tried to redeem himself once he saw me wince by saying something about how he would have liked to have known me when I had all that fire. I thought to myself, but did not say, I still have all that fire. I still have all of this. But I saw something else as well. I saw a fire I needed to reclaim for myself, a fire that would the world had dampened but was still mine. And if I wanted it true, it was no longer flaring to the surface." And that's the other part too, because you kind of get mellow when you get older. And maybe, some do some, for the most part, you get mellow. So fire itself emerges from the ageless place. So it's about also reclaiming your fire, reclaiming that part of yourself as well. And I think many people who are going through their second Saturn return right now, even their first one, because the first one is like very awkward. I'm watching it with my kids and going through their Saturn returns and seeing all the obstacles and everything that are coming up in their life and the changes that they are going through, to watching a lot of my clients and friends going through their second Saturn return and seeing all the obstacles and everything that they're going through. And I'm going to say about reclaiming your fire is so true. Reclaiming that of who you are, it's still there. Yes, the you have moved on from the youth. The youth was there, and you passed into a different, space and time. But I feel like this is really about us looking at um how we can come forth and look at the things, the deeper thinking, the transformation, the birth, death, and possible power struggles, and also where it's lying in your chart as well. Um, and where that is, it has a lot to do with what you will be going through in your own life at this time. And I can say it is a transformational time, hence being going through my second Saturn return and seeing others go through their second Saturn return, where things pop up that you never thought would pop up, or things maybe you haven't dealt with are, rearing their head. And it's like, okay, now it's time for me to sort of look at this and really allow myself to claim it and remold it and um let it go. Let it go, right? In such a beautiful way as we are going through, because we're also a lot that had happened in the 60s, when it came to reclaiming our rights, reclaiming who we were. I mean, if you think about a lot of women's rights. I mean, we weren't, was it 1972 was the first time women were allowed to have their own credit card without a man. Um, and how that was Mary Kay is a fine example. If you know what Mary Kay is. Some may not. I don't even know if Mary Kay's still around, but God bless her. I mean, she was a fighting mom who was wanting to make a living, right? And they didn't even want to give her a loan because she was a woman, and I think she was divorced as well. So that was just like X marks, and so much emerged out of that first, right? But going through your second Saturn return is not an easy feat because there's a lot of a lot more baggage, and sometimes when you are facing certain things and obstacles in your life that you didn't have to face for the first time, but as I said, it just looks different. It just looks it's a different rhyme that goes with it. That's what Mark Twain was saying. So looking at that rhyme that is going along with this second Saturn return, that many of you born during that time are going through it, that makes me feel much better about my life. Yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting when you start to look at it, and I that's why I love to bring in the astrology, because it gives you sort of an idea, a definition on, okay, why am I feeling so fucked up? Why are things looking so crazy? And then you got to look at, the time and the era also of when, you went through possibly your first Saturn return, and also of the time and era of a lot of when these transits were coming through, and the things that were going on in the world, and um the fight that was on in the world at that time. And now we're coming into sort of an opposite, where yeah, women gained a lot of things to do, especially when it came to rights and civil rights, and women coming into being able to do a lot more than become a secretary or a nurse or something along that line. This is where we're coming into, where women can accomplish a lot more and take a lot more in their life, right? But we're also coming into a time that's trying to take away a woman, that's trying to take away women's right in a different format. So it's quite interesting when you sort of take that step back and you're looking at how it's all being transformed in a different rhyme. Same kind of thing, but a different rhyme kind of thing. So it's empowering, it's beautiful. Um, I know for me it was like I moved I moved houses. I worked at a job, I lost it, I lost the job, I worked the job, I lost the job. I reclaimed a lot to do with my own self, and uh, coming into new ways of thinking things and understanding, and also just a lot of the other changes that are going on within my life personally. So taking this step forward is a big one. Now, if you want to, I also have the astrology club coming up on September 9th, and we are going to go through a lot to do with the moon phases. I didn't even touch that today about the moon phases. I don't even have my cards or anything with me to pull a card, because I just came in the bedroom here because the boys, Mateus and Dad, Papa, are out there. Um, but this is really with the astrology, we're going to be going through not only the different moon phases, what that means to you. We also have a lot to do with where, if for some of you who are coming, um, where are you? I'm in the bedroom. Um, we are also going through, um, if you're going through a Saturn turn, where your Saturn is, what that means to you, what house it is, because the average age, that's who follow me. We're also going to be going through the eclipses, because the eclipses will be coming through. The nodes are going to be changing at the beginning of the year into Virgo, and so with those changes that are coming up, it's you know it's important to take a look at, especially because they're going to be going into a Virgo Pisces, North Node going into Pisces. South Node going into Virgo. And we're also going to be coming into eclipses when we're coming into the Pisces um, energies as well. So lots of changes with the astrology club. So that's coming up and it's $75. So if you're wanting to, and it's recorded. So for those who want to join, it is recorded as well. What else is going on? I also will be doing Reiki. I haven't put out those dates yet. Um, but they will be on the weekend. So they'll be on a Saturday, Sunday. So I'm going to do, if people missed the first level one, we're going to do level one again on a Saturday, Sunday, and then we're going to do a level two, possibly the following week or 2 weeks after, and do a level two masters on a Saturday, Sunday. So it's going to be on a weekend for that. So yeah, so we're going to be doing those things. We're going to be doing those things. And yeah, so there you go. They just wiped my brain and they said, okay, I'm done uh, with you all. So I'm going to send you guys out so much love. May the Lord and Lady watch over and bless each and every one of you in all that you say and all you be and all you do. Thank you so much for being a part of my community. If you are wanting to order moon readings, the next one is a full moon. And that will be in the next 2 weeks, will be a full moon, so the full moon readings. If you want to order the readings for the moons for the rest of the year, it's $360 for the rest of the year. So hey Dana, so definitely order that and then you'll get your moon readings for sure for the rest of the year. So blessings everybody and have a great Thursday. Oh, just a side note, I am not a gate 888 person. Plus it's a leap year. So remember that. So all this bullshit that's going out with the gateway opening, da 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 da. No. And especially when we've had a couple big earthquakes that have happened in one in California and one in Japan. So just be aware, earthquakes, all of that kind of fun stuff. Anyways, I gotta go. So have a good day, everybody. And bye bye.